Hello again and welcome to our little weekly podcast, Sweet Omagh Town Internet Radio. And by the magic of radio, I suppose, I'm going to dial this little number and I hope to talk to Mr. Declan Ford.
Hello.
Oh, it works.
It does indeed. It has always worked. It is ever thus.
Well, what are you doing yourself, Mr. Ford, this week?
No, I'm just sitting relaxing. I'm just chewing the fat. And there's a lot of fat to chew. And I think when this is all over, I think there'll be lots of diets. And then we'll have less fat to chew.
Yes. I'm getting the house ready for the station.
For the what?
For the station. You wouldn't know what that is now.
Oh, I do know what the station. I have seen it. Look, I have seen people with chairs outside and the place. I never saw houses as clean and as tidy. Well, for the visitation. And then you sit and you get all these neighbours that you don't like, yes. And they come in and then they eat you out of house and home, and they're spending their time looking round and
Aye.
I've been there. I know what it's like.
Yeah. Well, my daughter is moving house, and I'm painting the house for her, and that reminded me of our childhood when you agreed to have the station. Maybe I think it was one round during Lent and one round Halloween thereabouts. So every so often it was your sort of turn to take this, and then that was for about 6 weeks before that. Everything was cleaned out and tidied, and the stamper on the walls, and
Oh, it was like the royal visit. Somebody said the Queen thinks that every hospital smells of new paint.
Yes, exactly.
So it was the same. Oh no, I had a little mirth in the station, to be brutally honest. Well, I think it put people under a lot of pressure, and there was a lot of whether you wanted to do it or not.
It was of its time, Douglas.
It was of its time, and that's the kindest thing you could say about it,
that's all you could. Anyway, that reminded me, because, there's so much going on here. We're trying to get new carpets down and then doors painted and changed, and,
Right.
Footering about, as we would say, for the want of a better word.
So I didn't realise that you were into DIY.
I'm not, but I can't afford to pay any bills.
Oh, well, that's a DIY. Destroy it yourself.
Well, I was hoping that you, with the great experience you had, you would have volunteered, but no, you didn't ring or say.
Oh, absolutely not. I'm still living in my little COVID-free zone. I don't want to tempt fate.
No.
No, God save us. Oh, no. Mr. Ford's health is vitally important.
Absolutely, yes. Oh, you live by the rules,
I am a hermit. In another life, I would have been living in one of those wee stone buildings that they have, way down in County, the Blasket Islands. I could see myself living in one of those wee huts. Just me and a book of poems and a mirror. So what else would you want?
I thought you sort of boy would kiss the Blarney Stone.
Oh, no time for that nonsense either. And then you see these big, grossly overweight Americans being hauled over, and you think they're going to drop them, but no, it never worked out, No. You should read a book called The Road to McCarthy's Bar.
Right.
By the late Pete McCarthy. And the gist of the book is he goes round every bar in Ireland called McCarthy's.
Yes.
And it is the most scathing description of tourists that I've ever come across. It is brilliant, especially tourists who would flock to the likes of Killarney.
Okay.
And Killarney is a beautiful place, but they seem to think that there's only certain parts of it, namely the town, are worth visiting, and Kit Kearney's cottage and places like that.
Yes.
And it's brilliant. Apparently, the poor man, he died, but his next venture was to be a jaunt around the Sperrins. Now, wouldn't it have been great to see what he would have made of the people here? It'd be like the Valley of the Squinting Windows by Brinsley McNamara, where he had to leave the town he was from because he'd been less than complimentary about his neighbours.
Oh, well, a bit like Angela's Ashes, I suppose, wasn't it?
These misery memoirs.
Yeah. Speaking of that, I remember reading a book by, I think it was a brother of Sinead O'Connor's. Was he a journalist, was he?
Oh, he is a great novelist.
Yeah.
Is it John O'Connor?
It's a book about Dublin, and he went for looking for all these Dublins in America and all that, and he arrived at one town that was named after Dublin as two Dublin, and all these all these Dublins around America, and he went exploring them to see what they were like. It's one of these holiday reads that I read sometime. I think it was O'Connor, John O'Connor, yeah.
He's a great writer. No, the BBC recently had one of his books, The Star of the Sea, which was about a ship, and about a murderer on the ship. It was very clever and worked brilliantly as a radio drama over 2 days. It's excellent. He's a great writer. Great writer. He's got more hair than his sister.
I thought you were going to say more brains than his sister.
My sister's a very fine singer,
Oh, very good. Yes.
a great singer. You know, she's, so I think Gabe Byrne was very fond of her. You know, he gave her a great time. You know,
That song, Nothing Compares to You, classic. She does a beautiful version of that, and she does a couple of other big classics she done as well.
yeah.
You know, but
Well, she kind of, she has had an eventful life. You know,
yeah,
she's a bit like Bob Dylan. She has dipped her toe in many religions. You know, she's tried everything once.
bit like yourself.
Oh, not a bit. Look, I'm just an old traditionalist.
Yeah,
I'm just negative all the time.
just hate the
I've no
world.
time
Eh?
for goodness.
You don't like goodness at all. You hate goodness.
Oh, I don't trust people who God bless you. Absolutely not. If anybody says God bless you, I think, well, what's going on here?
Is that right?
You should think it, but not say it. You know, because you sort of become very pious. I don't do. I'm starting to. The hackles are rising in my neck now.
Oh, God bless you, Stone.
Ah, stop it.
Right. Okay. Our little program this week, Mr. Ford. If you're interested in what we're going to do, not that I think you are, but on a serious note, all right?
Yeah.
We can be serious. Some months ago, you and I, we interviewed the late Brian Coll.
That's right. Oh, I remember it well.
And he was hale and hearty then, unfortunately.
He was.
Yeah.
He yodeled, do you remember?
Yes, he did indeed.
And he broke into song.
And he said that if he was spared, he would be 80 in March.
That's right. And I didn't believe him. No. I thought that man is no more 80 than I am.
No, he won't. But sadly, it didn't happen. But I was going through old tapes. Back in the days of our little Strula FM, was it? We did a little program around 0809 or thereabouts. We had Brian Coll down and his lifelong friend of Pat Chester's. Not Pat, the musical Pat Chester, who's a friend of his as well.
Yes,
but a cousin Pat, who we know must have maybe the referee Pat, let's put it that way.
Yes.
Pat and Brian come in just to talk about Omagh and growing up in Omagh and the pantomimes and what they did and what life was like, and they painted a great picture of the town. You and I sat there, it was before Christmas. I ate sweets, but you don't eat sweets. So you'll hear the Quality Street and roses been passed around. And you frowning because you hate sugar. But
I do, I don't like. I hate to see anybody eating sweets. I get very cross.
But you hate everything, Declan.
Oh, absolutely.
But anyway.
But I do remember that vividly now. It was, and you know what? It touched upon music, but it was more about just growing up in the town.
You know, yes. And the last program we done with Brian Coll, obviously, it was listened to throughout Ireland and further afield by Brian Coll fans. And this is the same type of interview. Oh, it's more about growing up in Omagh. We didn't really talk much about his career and fame because that's very well documented. But we wanted the people to hear because it's very much an Omagh station, what life was like in Omagh. We didn't ask that because we felt that's fairly well documented. This is the Brian Coll, the human side of Brian Coll and his friend as just as a school lads and the rascality young lads get up to and various things. So that's because out of respect for Brian and his family, we'll play this now in March.
Oh yeah, I mean it's a lovely. Well, it's not an interview; it's more a chat.
It's just a chat, yeah.
And a lot of Brian's values come out in the way he just talks about respect for as you were young for the older people and that. So it'll give an insight into that just as what made him what he was. Yeah,
exactly, and it is the small things that do shape your life when you're young. Really, it's influences that people can have on you, maybe be it a teacher or parent or guardian or whatever. So and it lets you see the path that it took him, I suppose, and what it brought him to. And sadly, he's no longer with us, but his memory's so much alive in the town. You'd still expect to see him, would you? You used to walk.
Oh, absolutely. But anyway, I think that it'll bring back many happy memories, and so that's the important.
That's the important side of it, and it lets you see just how fragile we all are, aren't we? We think we're invincible. We think we're going to live and going to do things and all the rest, and none of us really know, do we?
Well, that's true. That's true.
But
indeed,
I know how to cheer you up on a later Thursday night, Declan, don't I? I make you happy. Huh?
Indeed.
As I say, happiness is an inside job.
Absolutely. Yeah. Just look. We all find our own happiness,
Yeah, right. Well, you'll be happy, I suppose, Mr. Ford, when you get out and about.
I can't wait to get into the garden again. I've earmarked certain parts of the garden to be dealt with, rather. I'm an old disciplinarian in the garden.
As my late father would say, what's stopping you?
The wind and the rain and the weather.
Yes.
I just want the good weather to come again. I want to bask in the sunshine, fully clothed with a hat and a coat on me, sweltering, mowing the lawn, with gloves on and Wellingtons and thick woolly socks.
I know. Anyway, get to your bed, Mr. Ford. I think you need some sleep.
I shall indeed.
All right.
On that note, good night.
Good night. And as Dave Allen would say, may your God go with you. Bye. Take care. Bye. Bye-bye. Okay, Declan, on that cheery note, we'll leave you, and we will spend the next hour or so in the company of the late and great Brian Coll and his lifelong friend, Pat Chesters. To see you again, take care of yourselves. Bye. Once again, you are listening to Dom McGurgan, Declan Ford, and our guests, Brian Coll and Pat Chesters. Brian and Pat have brought in some old posters from the early days of the pantomime, Pat.
Yes.
What year did it start?
It started in 1950. 50, yes. Cinderella.
What was the name of the first one, Pat? Or Cinderella?
Cinderella, first one, yeah. Desi Ryan was the Demon King. Michael Gormley. Paddy Laird and Frank Ball with Ugly Sisters. Kathleen Given. Paddy McElhinney, that's the only pantomime he did.
Yes.
He went on to better things.
Better things, yeah, he certainly did.
Maureen McMullen was Cinderella. Maureen Boner was Cinderella. Yeah. Anne Stanage was the fairy godmother, that's Michael Gormley's, up in O'Connor Terrace. Kathleen McMullen, Maureen's sister, was Dundee. And you had Noel Daly from the Derry Road, yeah. Noel Daly, another.
And it was all capacity houses?
Oh, full to every night. Packed. They were they'd be turned away. And buses came from everywhere to them.
And I wonder, had there been pantos before that, or were they taking a big gamble just trying it to see if it would work?
God, I'm not sure.
But, I mean, Omagh became famous for the pantos, isn't it?
Well, it was.
Bogues, and Paddy Laird in particular, had this. It'd be an off-spin or a junior version of what they've seen on this big screen coming in from America, Hollywood. Aye. And it was a huge, success on screen. And they reckon, just dilute it slightly and then put it on in a procure sense. Right. And I could not believe it used to be queued from the town hall, the old where the Yards Theatre is now, all the way to Bridge Street and up towards the Melville Hotel. They queued both directions, and a lot of times, as Pat said, to be refused admission because it was just capacity. 24 shows, 21 late night shows and 3 matinees, and it was just on. Then I got involved. I didn't want to get involved because all I wanted to do was and I was singing in the choir, and they singled me out to sing spots and wee things like that. And I wanted to be, had my freedom. When I'm away from home, I wanted to just do it. But you were back at school again, stand up, sing this, do that, right, turn and but on and all, it was lovely. And Pat's father, of course, was involved heavily and all the scenery, construction of it, and my dad as well. And there's several other people. There was an artist called Kearney, done some of the finer painting, all the flowers and the landscapes and beautiful. And then George Rogers and 3 or 4 other people involved in the electrical side of things.
Great community thing, wasn't it though?
Great.
Oh, everybody pulled, totally.
Great. It was great for us young fellas, growing up then.
Must have been.
That was a great time, We used to get a job when we were lads up on the balcony. There used to be the spots, the spots.
Yes,
we used to change the colours, the squares.
You had a sheet to follow and you put in different leaves coming down, babes in the wood, and it showed you the leaves, then you turned the handle and showed the leaves falling down.
It'd be roasting hot, you trying to pull out one and put in the other colour, it'd be boiling.
If you made a mistake and touched it by accident, there was an odd swear word. That didn't go down, that was logged. But of course, the old town hall had a great atmosphere about it, hadn't it? It was just of its time. And it was
that's right.
Great place to go to. It was a great place to go to. Lovely memories.
And who produced the pantos?
Well, it was Paddy. Well, they were written by Paddy and Frank Ball, Paddy Laird and Frank Ball. So they were the men.
They were members of the Omagh Players, of course.
And it was directed and presented by Paddy Bogues.
Paddy Bogues, yeah.
The early ones,
The early ones, yeah. Bogues, he was a jeweller, those that wouldn't know.
Yeah.
And Paddy was a jeweller, of course, himself as well.
Paddy was brilliant too. He was great at them too,
One night, I remember one night in particular, I forget what year, it was way back, and Dickie Kennedy, Richard, probably Dickie he's known as, and he was sick. And he was a clown, but he was dressed up as whatever. And Paddy there knew the script, everybody's part. And Paddy dressed up and went out to the town hall stage. I'll never forget it, and the place was packed. I remember Scott's Mill sitting on his big, long, 6-inch long cigarette holder and a big silver top cane and a big moustache. You could have serious big moustache. And he's sitting there with obviously his wife and family members around him. And the town hall was packed. And Paddy there came walking out, and he was supposed to say Dickie's words, but he never spoke at all. And of course, there's about 16-piece orchestra sitting down, the full length of the town hall across. And the rouge was on the cheeks, and he was dressed up in a feminine fashion, and the hair and all, and the whole bit, and the nails and all. And he stood, and the next thing, somebody giggled, and somebody else giggled, and then 4 or 5, and then a dozen laughed, then 50 laughed. Then the whole place went up and was up just laughing, and Paddy kept a dead straight face with this big 18-inch long cigarette holder. And he stood for a while, and that thing went on about 3 or 4 minutes. And he turned around and viewed and looked around him, and you want to see the different angles he put on, the different stances. And he turned around, walked back down the middle of the stage, back, threw out his backside and then turned it, and walked off the stage and brought the house down and never spoke. Gosh. But the way he done it, yes, and nobody never spoke, and he brought the house down. Paddy there done that. Never seen anybody ever doing that. You need to nearly see it. I didn't describe it too well there, but
it was a great piece of mime.
He knew the way visual things affected people if you paid attention.
Yes.
Afraid of him too. He was very when he called you order to do something, you had to stand there and pay total attention. Don't be. What do you want to be part of it? Do you? Well, then listen.
Right.
And that's that. You see. But a good sense of fun in them as well. But play the game and then we'll have fun later.
Aye.
That was the discipline in those days, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Both for us all that age.
That's correct. It was a good thing too.
You didn't have the presumption to call someone by the Christian name.
No.
Right. No, they were Mr. You know.
Oh, Mr. Oh, sure. And I think there's a pity in a way. I'm all for a wee bit of relaxation because it was bordering on being militaristic. It was a wee bit too regimental. But at the same time, having said that, it's gone completely now the other way. Although, having said that, I hear people say, "Oh, youngsters now, they don't know." That's completely wrong. I have no several children, some of them are even relations of my own, and they've got lovely manners, fantastic children today. There is a few who are the old story, and they blacken, they'll get the others and not that good a name because they are unsavoury or do something wrong, you know. But and then in our day, back 60 years ago, when we were very small, taking part in the shows as children and all, it was you had that sense of respect and a wee bit of fear as well for teachers, priests, ministers, nuns, Christian brothers, the lay teachers, your parents, aunts, uncles, and you called Auntie John, Auntie, Uncle. You didn't say Mickey or Seamus.
That's right.
It was Uncle John, excuse me. You know, it was excuse me.
Right, yeah, it was a different way.
That's the way it was. Like, we took it as normal. You see.
I know. We were talking to Paddy McMahony the other day, and we were talking about growing up in Corkmore Park, and he said, not only was his parents watching him, but all the neighbours as well were watching him.
That's right.
Everybody watched everybody.
If I remember walking with the 12th of July was way down, was away at the swinging bars, and the bands were coming along, the busbies and all the great parade, and the drums banging, and the pipers going, and I was walking in front with a stick, leading the whole package, and it was about 8, and May Rogers and her sister, what do they call her? Rita, they were either coming in from some appointment or somewhere at the county hospital, and the seats that time were packed both sides of the pavement. And they says, "There's young Brian. What's he doing?" I was walking, leading the band. This 1949 I recorded. I was a long distance from Gallashill. I mean, you're a long way.
You're off your beaten track.
But it was all on good fun, you know, at the time.
That was a Christmas pantomime. What about Easter Review then? What was it organised?
They were great. They were
Father Shields came and then he started the boys club.
He was a godsend to us when he arrived in Omagh.
What year did he come, Brian?
He came in December 52. And the first show that he did was in 53.
Pat was one of the first to join the club.
That was a concert. That was a concert. I mean, that there's the second annual. That program there there was no program for the first one. So
it's great to see these things. I didn't think these things would have.
How does them like you?
The first one he did was Bonus and Blarney, and it was brilliant. You know, it was just the whole.
Who was the cast there, Pat? You know,
you were talking there about Paddy Gormley. God rest Paddy Gormley. And Mary McGuigan, one of the McGuigans from Georgia Street, the shoemaker's shop. And May McCann, May's still about the town there. Adam Irvin, he's gone too. Jimmy Bradley went to America, and he's passed away. And Pat Brogan, Big Pat,
passed away too.
Pat Cleary, he's still about there. He was in it. He was in it. It was really, Tony McCrory would have been in it then.
Oh yes,
Tony was in it. He was.
Right.
And
Sadly gone
we
as
just
well.
mentioned there Parnell, he was on
I
it.
say Par Given,
there.
work of art as he would
Par.
refer to himself.
Yeah.
He is very, very funny.
Yeah.
There's
Lovely man.
Stephen McKenna there.
Uh-huh.
That was the first time we'd have been on the stage in a show like that. So early in the morning it was called. And there's Stephen McKenna and Brian's in it there.
Yeah.
Like the own Joe Hackett, Seamus Taggart, Leo Dorn.
Well, even look at that, the
Young.
list of names. Were they all from all around the town, or was it one?
Not all around the town, no. All around the
I
town.
went because
We're-
you're getting free buns and lemonade most of them. That's where I went. Mainly.
No, they were from all over, all
You had
around
to
the
buy
town. They
them
were,
in the end, it was
they
good.
were, they were Declan, they were.
And that
the club was a bit
that was
less
separate from the panto.
Oh, they were.
Right.
And it was one was the Omagh Players, and this was then
This was
the
the
boys.
this
and
was
girls.
the boys and girls
Did
club.
he set up the club or already?
Well, he did. He set up the Omagh Boys and Girls Club, but there was a
There was
wee
a club
club, I
there
believe,
before
before that. You know, there was, I think it was Master Sullivan or somebody.
That's right.
There's somebody involved in it, you know.
Oh,
But
aye.
Father
I was in
Shields-
it too. It was tuppence a night. You paid your tuppence and the 2 old pennies. And there's 240 pennies in the pound. So I mean, 120 people got in for the pound. There wasn't much left on the night. Like that's how much it was. 1948.
But you had Paddy Laird there helping and Frank Ball and them people. I mean,
Right.
They
helped,
they
oh.
helped and produced them too in them days, you know.
Well, you see, I suppose it was also a way of auditioning for the pantos as well.
Well,
They'd be looking for
there'd
the.
be an overflow onto the
Yeah,
pantomime
for the juniors
for
and
the
the
choruses, you know.
Yeah.
But it was a great time. We had a really great time growing up, us boys, you know.
And though the Omagh Boys Club and Girls Club would have been more of a review, whereas the panto would have
that's what
been
they were called, Easter reviews. That's right.
would have been a story of
that
the
is-
sorts in it.
That's
you
right.
know.
That's correct. That's correct.
The club
They were
man was
Easter
club
reviews.
first, companion second, self last. I think it's what you can do for your comrade or your colleague. Do it. I think you can do for the club in general. Do it. And don't be queuing up always. Me. Get back and fast years. Why we would be digging. We're not carrying stones and down at the carnival. The time they were get carnival, there'd be arriving town. There'd be bands booked and there'd be football matches arranged and tug of war. And we'd be wheeling stones and all. Then if they bought a case of bottles of lemonade over, we would just drop shovels and run fast. You'd, no, wait. And he made you wait to everybody else. The ones who were least involved, he had a funny way of doing it, but he made the ones who really sweated hard last. And he made just wee ways of doing things, but you didn't appreciate them initially, but then eventually you did. And when you left the town, eventually as priests do get moved around parish to parish, and there was a gap in this town was unfillable, really. And the eyes of a lot of young people, he was so well liked, you know.
Was he just a good organiser, or what was special about
He was
him?
a man that he could get anybody to do anything. That's the key.
Just by his
He was-
personality.
He walked into the army and he got the boxing ring, snapped the fingers. 2 army lads arrived at the Secretary of Church with the boxing ring.
I mean, we had the boxing ring, as Brian says, and our PT instructor was Sergeant Major Shaw, a lovely man. Sergeant McDonough took the
And Corporal
boxing.
McDonough was the boxer.
We got the football. He got the football pitches for the Boys and Girls Club football team. You know, the Boys Club football team. And down the military home. You know, he was a great man. You know, he was a great man. And then sure, he when he went to Greencastle, sure, he brought the whole.
That's right.
He brought that with him. Yep. He put that on the map.
Brought the Coronation Street Stars. And
Oh, I remember
and
it.
people.
Flew them in
You could- you could
helicopters,
get
didn't
anybody.
Johnny Logan and that.
Johnny Logan, that's where Johnny Logan
Flown
came
in
to.
by helicopter. I remember
Okay,
that.
yeah, okay, he was very good. Now he done a lot for the youth of the town at that time. You know, he done a lot for the youth of the town.
And the strange something that lives with you the rest of your life as well, isn't
That's
it?
right. Oh, we never.
It's like a brand and
Never
an
forgotten
animal.
it.
It's
That's,
that's it. And then he took us for holidays to Mullinmore.
Used to go to Mullinmore and
Down by
holidays.
the far side west of Bandorn there. And we paid £1. You paid £1 for the week. And the week that I was staying in 1953-4, the bus took the club members that were going that were staying, and there was another bus going taking children up for a day visit and spend the Sunday, and then you'd go home. And those that stayed the week. And Pat Brogan, as Pat mentioned earlier, the late, now lovely man, he was a club prefect and he was also a nice singer, Pat Brogan. And he was one of the prefects, and they would order it. Laying out the week who's washing dishes and what day, and you were doing peeling spuds, and everybody had their job to do. Like, but I started cycling to Bundoran, and they had my bicycle with me, so I cycled, and the sun was beaming down the whole day. But when I got near Balleek, and that took me an hour and a half or 2 hours, only a 3-speed bicycle then, and they thought I was mad even instead of putting the bicycle on the bus. But I wanted to have the bike when I get to Bundoran, so I could cycle into Bundoran. And Pat, he'd got in the bar of the bike or whatever. And I remember coming down the main street in Balleek, and there had been a shower of rain. although it wasn't raining at the time, and I came down as fast as I could. There was a few people standing outside the little hotel or
Carlton.
The Carlton.
well, the car was across the street, but just on the corner on the inside, on the apex, there was a bar.
It's like Cleary's bar.
Just at the very corner there, and I banked down there and down I went on the road, and stood along the road on my knees and tore the trousers and cut the knees. The knees were bloody, and the men lifted me up, and I was in a certain amount of pain, but I cycled on and out of Bundoran through Bundoran on ahead to Wallamore, and of course, without thinking, I just parked the bike and took off and got on my swimming trunks and straight into the salt water, and the squeals of me thought a shark with the cut legs. But it was the best thing ever happened, because it's like one of those sprays, cleanly. But it was a lovely time, and as I say, we got nights. We were all taken into days or nights. You were taken into Bundoran and given nights to see the amusements and to be money. There you are, there's the right user on now. And we're all very young, but we're well looked after now. And there was no favourites as such. Although Father Shields, God rest his soul, and the late, what do you call the priest, the Sheffield, the jeweller, what do you call it?
John McCullough.
And Bennett, or Donald Bennett, and who else?
Jimmy Boyle.
They planned behind my bike, and they took my bike, but I didn't know this.
Right.
See, other lads in the club asked me for loan of the bike, and I wouldn't lend the bike to nobody.
Right.
Not even my best friend Pat. So, because the bike to me was, Daddy bought the bike to me, and there was nobody else even hardly had a bike at the time, only myself. This is true. So the next thing, the bike was stolen, and I had the bike locked up, chained on, and the lock was picked. Or not picked, sorry, one of the links were prized open, and my bike was gone. So the next thing, a night passed, and eventually the word came down the line from wherever that the bike was got and was up in the guard station in Mullimore, and I had to go down with the people that I mentioned there to identify the bike. And down, I was only 12, and I landed down, and the next thing, said, that's my bike. Oh, hold on. The company that made this bike made many hundreds, possibly thousands of these bikes, and they're all over the world, these bicycles. And they're exactly the same as that. What do you mean it's your bike? How do you, what's that? I know by that mark there, look, and I know by that there. Is that right? Well, right, it was now established that the bike's yours, but there's also someone you're not maybe aware of. You took this bike across the border without permission. Do you know that? And I says, I didn't know that, man. And the boys behind my back, and the whole thing. And then there was a 12 shilling fine. 12 shillings then? It was £120. And the next thing, they opened the wallets to pay the money, pay the fine and get a receipt for the thing, And I turned around and I said, when my daddy finds out that there'll be a 12 shilling fine to pay, I'll be murdered. So the next thing, home that they were sitting down getting me tea at Mullimore, and I got the bike and I rode it away. And hours later I was getting my evening meal, and Father Shields came over and he says, Terry, you never found out who stole that bike? He says, we found out, He said, in fact, I know who took it. So I Father, how do you know? He says, it was me. And then I had to say, well, you couldn't even scold him even then. And then he explained the whole thing. And the boys was, all right, Brian was only a bit of a joke and blah, 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 blah.
Terry McGurk's father, you see, was the sergeant.
Aye.
In the guard station.
Yeah. He was in the whole thing.
He was all set up.
The whole thing was all arranged.
The whole thing was set up. It was well done.
Me sitting like this here. But I have the same bike yet in the house. I have it.
Oh my goodness.
I haven't rode it for 35 years, but I still have it. I kept it. And and the bulb, hand on Bible, you lift the front wheel and spin the wheel and the light's on. And I haven't been on it since them days.
Dynamo.
And they're still working, the bulb's still working. Yeah. But sure, it was then you got a new tyre that time, 26 by 1 3/4 in McSorley's Bridge Street, and you come up and got it on, and 2 or 3 neighbours come down to see, step down to see the new tyre. No, Brian got a new tyre. All down looking at this new tyre. That was a happening. It was a thing. Like, see now, people throw away cars at 20 grand and buy some of them. It's just a throwaway. Little things that time meant an awful lot to people. And I remember, as Pat was saying earlier, about the Campbell's Yard and John Street there, Cunningham's. Campbell's it was, sorry.
Campbell, yeah.
And a huge big butcher shop, and away that big yard, you open gates and down Holloway, and at the back of the Ulster Herald there type of thing. Well, it was parallel to the Herald. And there'd be up to maybe 40, 50 men. This is 3-4 weeks prior to Christmas. And there'd be thousands of turkeys. Chickens as well, and geese. But mostly turkeys, the black turkey that time, of course. And I could name and know a good few of them, and all pluckers. And you see the gaslight thing sticking out from the wall where they used to burn off the bristles and get to prepare them for England. They were being sent to different places, and we used to hang about. Hopefully you'd get sent a message. Some of these pluckers would send you for 10 woodbine, and then you'd get tuppence for going. And you didn't go too far to the... If anybody dropped a penny that time, it didn't bounce anyway.
Well, just talking about Christmases, are there any Christmases from those days, Pat, that would stand out in your memory? Anything that you got for Christmas or memories of Christmas?
I would say Declan probably the silver gun with no trigger. You know,
The solid one. Absolutely. You couldn't shoot anybody. You couldn't lift it. There was heavy. There was, the chamber didn't run and the trigger didn't move. I think it was one solid piece of old cast iron.
Nice.
But once you stuck that in, you had no holster. You stuck that in, then Charlie Fisher, the wee shoemaker, he made his wee wrap around holsters for them. And you put that on. When you put that on, you were John Wayne. You just...
Gene Audrey.
Or Gene Audrey, you were there. Like, I remember paying in the book at O'Connell's.
No, I was in the Hill.
Right.
6. Well, they opened up after that. They opened, they weren't there to start that wee shop in there. It was £6 a week, for a book. And the book would have come to 4 and 6, and I have the annual. I have them like new from the house. 1948, 9, 50 and 51, like new. And Kit Carson and anyway, blah blah blah. And you brought the book home, but Santi still brought it. It was weird. You left it somewhere and it went away then, and then Santi would come and then he would lift it. And he would lift it beside you when you were sleeping.
That's right.
He actually brought the book.
But you were in
and
on
you
the
lying, you sleeping, you watch him with one eye. You should watch him, for him, man.
Oh, Santi was wonderful.
He was a great man.
Santi was dead.
Still is. During that last song, Brian, you were telling me about the Omagh cinemas.
Yeah.
The Miller Cinema would have been one of the first films you would have been seen.
Miller's in the county, and then there was a Star Cinema as well. I was in it once. Pat Mateus, he can't remember being in it. I was in it once with an older brother, and I can't remember being in it either now, but he said it definitely was in it, But Miller's was the biggie in the county, and you lived... the cinemas, the pictures changed every 2 days. If a new film came in the Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and then none on the Sunday, didn't open. And down you went, and of course in the early matinee days it was 6D, Pat. And then, although you'll hear boys telling you, actually that was dear. I remember playing threepence on the Star and all, when it was back in the 20s or 30s. And at night time then the adults were paying 10D. And, but you believed, such was the film from coming at them, and such was the presentation and such a big screen. It was all very believable.
Who were the heroes then to young fellows growing up?
Well, the Western people, Pat, would have been who?
Johnny McBride.
Hopalong Cassidy.
Yeah. Roy Rogers.
Gene Audrey, the singing cowboy. Well, they both sung, Roy sung too. Gabby Hayes, and then
Tex Ritter,
the boy with his horse with the ring around the eye. What do you call him? Smiley Burnett.
Tex Ritter would have been in that one.
Tex, that's right. I met him.
Tom Max.
Did you meet
I
Tom?
met Tex Ritter. I met him. In 1970, I was doing a spot in Wembley Stadium at the Country Western Festival. And I could not believe when the toll said your man was on the show, you see. And that's the boy sang the theme tune for High Noon.
That's right, which
the
is
Johnny
on
Cooper
the
film
other
and Grace Kelly. And I couldn't, when I walked over to met him, I got a picture taken with him. And it's in this book of eventually get this book out.
Tell me, was he a big man?
Yeah,
height-wise and that?
No, well, I'm kind of just around the 6 foot. He was just slightly smaller than me.
Right.
But he was broad as a house.
Right.
Very, and he had a voice. The place vibrated when he spoke.
Right. Very good.
He had a deeper voice than Shea Hutchison.
Right.
And Shims had a deep voice, my.
That's right.
But I remember that as well, meet them. And then it seemed funny, you're way years earlier, you're like, my fair beauty.
That's right.
And here you're meeting the fella.
That's right. And we used to, I know my father, an old 78 of him doing, it was a balmy summer evening and a goodly crowd was there. But the way he said it, they are, it sounded lovely.
The well-read fellow Joe's Ballroom in the corner of the square, yeah.
Yeah, that's right. It was a lovely voice, lovely resonance.
Big rest, because that's him.
Yeah, and the heroes we mentioned there, of course, Gene Autry that we've just heard, and then the other ones that we mentioned, Tex Ritter, of course, and Roy Rogers, and
your own name, Ford, Tennessee, Ernie Ford, too.
Oh, what a voice!
I mean, what a voice is right.
But
voice. Ford, was one of those Western names as well. In the films, yeah. You never heard McCallion or
no, McLaglen
or Flanagan or
Flanagan was Ford.
There was a spread of names that were used in Western films all the time.
Isn't it strange and amazing the way that the Westerns caught the eye of young fellas growing up. You know, I'm sure, like many another, you left the cinema slapping your backside as you went out, and you're ready for the next adventure.
Coming up the courthouse hill.
Yeah, it was the quickest way to be a hero. You see, if you could get a gun, which was a terrible thing to say, like even in today's then or now, and you were good with it, and you got a way of respect right away. People, who's your man? They're either afraid of you or they're respected you or both. That's right. And this kind of thing. And then there's freedom of so much regimentality at the time, from school to parents. When you got to see the Western and the open spaces, and you could run away from this regimentality, this authoritative system you were living with, and you were exposed to all this lovely freedom, mountains and the cleared waters, the rivers, and it was deadly to see all this space, and you get away and they couldn't find you. Like, it would be great if I could live there, they'd never get me. Like. But you have these wee childish dreams about when you're very small. Like. You come out of the film when you're 6 or 7, beating yourself on the backside. You thought you were on a horse.
That's right.
You went away, go on ahead.
That's it.
You see boys hitting themselves and them running. But I mean, that was all innocent. But it was a nice, similar as Pat often says, it was a time you didn't realise it at the time, and now when you look back, it was the loveliest time. I feel a wee bit sorry for youth today in a way, because there's so many distractions and attractions.
Yes.
And there's so many. Well, in them days there was very few.
It's so graphic today, Brian.
Very much.
But in those days it was left very much to imagination.
Correct.
You know. Now it's graphic and it's very much in your face.
In your face, straight up, just that's right. Yeah.
We impersonated a lot of the films, you know, in them days, Declan. You know, you had Tarzan. See, we used to go to the Bluebell Wood and
And we went down.
climb the trees of.
I had to get a bow and arrow.
Just relive the film again, you know.
Relive the parts of the film. Yeah.
That, you know.
That's right.
Camel's Fields up there beside the hill there, we used to all play, you know.
You both right up the hill, we say.
I never done no damage. Well, Pat was right beside the fields, so I mean, he couldn't get any
Engine shed, the
closer.
back engine shed at the railways.
I'd been close. He'd been eating grass. He'd been in the fields.
Smoking engines used to come through the bedroom windows.
Oh, the smoke right here, right beside the
That
trains.
close to it.
Yeah. And funny, I never. In fact, now thinking back, I don't remember. God rest Pat's mum and dad, but never, or the wee Hackett or Fancy Culligan, the bread man, or anybody saying, or even my parents saying, "Now remember that, watch the train and don't go near the line." And we were running beside the trains and then passing, going into the express would be coming in from whatever or going out. And the south.
All the boys in the hill were all aware of it, the danger.
You grew up with it.
We
You
had
didn't
to
know.
cross it to get over to the fields or the Hackett. We wouldn't have to go over the bridge. We had to go through the rails, through the railway lines, you know.
And the train just be coming,
Yeah,
it
you know.
must be inches nearly.
But you were aware of it, you see, you know.
And nobody ever got hurt. No time that ever I knew.
Nobody ever got hurt.
No.
Well, then you're growing up in Omagh, Pat. The Chesters, are they an old Omagh family, or
Well,
was your father from the town?
My great grandfather was on the rail, worked on the railway.
Yeah.
He was an engine driver in 1870s.
That's
Where he
right.
was.
And was he from Tyrone originally, or did he come into Omagh when
Well,
they...
he must have came in. I think he came into Omagh.
Right.
Maybe to work on, you know, with the railways, you know, at that time. And
the old GNR, I
I'm
suppose.
working on that. So I'm in family history. I'm now working on it. And I've got to find out.
Only my background would be the same. My
Yeah.
great-grandfather came up from Monaghan,
Uh-huh.
and all his family worked on the railways.
Yes,
They lived
yes.
at a place called Lissanedden,
Yes.
between
Right.
Filton and Dromore, an old railway cottage there.
Right.
You know. And the awful thing is, there are no records really
No.
from the railway.
No,
from the
that's
railways.
sad too.
You think of the thousands.
Such a loss to lose the railways.
Was
You look
terrible.
back. You know, I mean, this town has suffered so much. But
So we were reared on them, right? We were reared
The
on
thing
them.
that I was puzzled me was I wouldn't be an historian to the extent where I know my own history as a child, and of course Pat and I grew up together in that period of music, pantomimes and shows. But to me, the town, when you got a bit older to really diagnose or analyse what was happening, had to happen, the town was totally dependent on the railway, really, and the gasworks side. Those two things, and the requirements of the town, and the steel and heavy timbers and stuff came in, and machinery and stuff came in by rail, and cattle, sheep, etc., and poultry all went out by rail. And the town was dependent on, not too much just for employment, that was employed a lot of people, and the gasworks lit the place. I mean, I remember when I was a child, it was gas lit, there was no electricity. And those two things which I thought they should have kept, roofed on the station and kept it, platforms, the rails, and they could have went to the right of the station where we are now, went to the right of it, the ground was there to do it, and carry on the now Northern Road, and still come out where they now are, and continued and roofed the station in for over all time, and the gasworks down by the library and down in Pontycon, and roofed it in as well. I remember the big ovens and the gasworks, and we'd go down, and Mr. McGarvey, what was his first name, Pat? Sam. He says to us, "Come here." And he called us over this particular day, it was about 1948. And he says, "You be good now. Don't be bringing your heartache to your parents, and don't be letting anybody down. Don't be breaking the law. Be good children now. Because come here." And he got the big long pole, and he opened up one of the big ovens, and a big ball of flame come out. He says, "That's what hell's like if you do wrong now." And we scattered out of the place. Run, remember, that's a fact.
Oh, my father worked in the Castors for years.
That's right.
That's right.
We used to go as children, and just to see them work. I mean, you talk about hard work.
But they should all sweat running. They should have kept that. But
very few men in the Castors have got the
there now.
pensions.
Would have been queued up to see all that.
Good, Chile.
And then down the Narra Gauge, the bigger train took us down. I was on it twice with my father and my older brother down to Strabane, and we got the wee Narra Gauge, which takes you through the way most of Donegal away into the back, and then you get away down to near Glenties, and you went on another smaller train, took you back to Ballyshannon. Then you got a bus, and Ballyshannon took you into Van Dorn. Then you got on the big train, the Jane, took you back to Omagh. And that had been kept for tourism. That wee Narra Gauge train now, but they're having them on the Isle of Man there. Oh, I don't know what they were thinking about. Done away with that. I just don't know. And the little bridges and all that's very unique thing. Not many countries in the world have that. But there you go.
We're guilty of anything in this town, I think, is we're suckers for people coming in and telling us they know what's best for us in this town. Look at the hospital. Look at the hospital as well. Same story, you know.
Can't understand that. Well, these are, to me, some of those things they're obviously wrong. You couldn't come up with an answer that would please me and say that's why they did it, because I just can't take it on my head at all why it was done in the first place.
No.
But happy memories, and as Pat says, a lot of the. And then there was 1, 2, 3, 4, at least, if not 5 blacksmith shops in Omagh. You see horses there up where McKelvey's is there, or where Hills is, where Darky Hamilton, and there'd be 2 horses outside at least any given day, and there'd be one on the fords there.
That's the Kevlin Road, isn't it?
Just as you turn in to go down to the back of what used to be the back alley, there was houses in there. And the Kevlin Road was full of cattle too, of course, and John Street was full of cattle. And the pubs was doing a fair old business. But I don't remember seeing people staggering about at night much in them days, you know.
I mean, it certainly wouldn't have been as it is now, you know, at the weekends, which is stand clear and all.
It's just a whole,
you don't go out and drink the way they're doing then. You've been arrested in 2 minutes.
And equally, Sunday was a busy time in the town, was it not? Were the shops open once on Sunday, or
no?
Were they always closed? Were they?
Town's closed on Sunday,
or Saturday?
Late Saturday.
Oh, late Saturday. Oh, 9 at least. Draperies open. People getting measured for suits at 9 o'clock on a Saturday night, and McGowan's at John Street, or Barney Riley's at the house.
They were all open.
They were all open.
The grocers and all.
The Home of Colonial, the
Saturday was a big night in the town.
Saturday was a big
grocery shops.
It was a big night in the town.
And all the sides and every big grocery shop had all the sides of bacon hanging up right down the shop, and the big balls of twine hanging up on the roof where they pulled it down, wrapped the parcel up, and they'd no cutter, just pulled the finger and cut, and off you went. And the bar, or the carrier, the bicycle stuck on your parcel, and away you went. But and there was apples on display, and turnips and stuff outside the grocery shops. And that was and the people, as I say, were going down.
We hadn't the money to buy them back then, we got them.
We got the money. You run past and you'd get something, you must have and you get a carrot.
Well, if you just take one part of the town, we'll say from the post office was at the top of the town. Before that,
it was in the middle of the town there, as you climbed the hill
just
first.
outside the door there.
Here,
just outside the arch there.
It was there first.
Left
when we were small.
Right.
Then they moved it up there.
And what had been up there at the corner of
Belfast Savings?
The bank.
That was a bank, was
Belfast
it?
Savings Bank,
Right. And then between it and where Pat Fahey's is...
So the White Hart Hotel would have been there.
That's right.
It was there before that.
Before that, aye.
Aye. Right.
But the post office was there, aye. That's right.
That's right.
I remember Peg McGuigan worked there. Dr. Remember she told us about
That's right.
That's what she
talked
was.
with your uncle Ben Kelly coming as a message boy.
Aye.
We had a lovely interview with her, recorded about 25 years ago, I suppose, maybe more now.
Yeah.
But she talked about Omagh during the Battle of the Somme, was it? She took down Morse code.
That's right.
And made up the pension books for the people.
Oh, aye.
That's right.
But you remember your uncle coming as a message boy?
I used to never hate it. Hate's the wrong word. I don't hate no one, but I used to dislike my uncle to the extreme, because occasionally, not all the time, but occasionally they'd pull out one of his old exercise books that he'd done, essays are done, and they'd hold it up to the class. I'll not mention the teacher who did it, but turn around and give me a slap. How could they be related? Because Kelly used to write stuff was unreal, and I wasn't that good at school, and they couldn't compare. How could they be related, you see? And that's thing Ben used to be, he could write anything, he just scribbled, but he's only one. It was like prescriptions he's writing, but you could read it.
Yes.
Because he trailed the pen across the page and it wrote something. It was weird.
Yes.
And he says, my nephew Brian could spend all day just looking at a car. I left school, nice to game school, and I'd be way through the countryside looking at helping the farmers.
But he's the only author I know. He wrote his books in the Omagh accent, the Omagh dialect.
Yes.
If you read his books,
That's
they're,
right.
they're very Omagh.
Very Omagh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He was good. Ben was
Pat
good.
has a good collection of his stuff. Pat has a nearly
has them
every
all,
book here, hasn't he?
Mm-hmm.
Pat has them all, every book. I've got a few of them. I should have more, really. But funny if he, like my mother passed away in 07, Ben was the same year. And funny if I didn't know that painting was on the way down to the studio here.
That's right. I think that's only been put up a few.
Fairly recent.
That's a pretty recent one.
Yeah.
But all in all, the cinemas, as Pat mentioned, and the pantomimes, these reviews.
We'd always
But what about
someone,
the
we'd always somebody to keep us going.
What about the soccer that time, Pat?
Football was great in them days too.
What do you call the team when we were small?
Kevlin.
Or Kevlin United?
They were the Hill team.
Right.
And the Joes was
That's right.
Castle Street. And then you had the YM.
That's right.
Sunnyside.
All rivalry.
More that was great. It was great, you know. It was a good time.
Big rivalry.
It was a good time to grow up for us lads, you know. So much going on, you know.
But Omagh it still is a great town.
Oh, it is. Oh, it is surely. Oh, it is surely. It is surely.
A lot of that,
Surely.
well, it's gone. That, I mean, the theatrical side of the town and the cinemas, 3 of them gone. The fair day, the station was a big heart to me. Once they pulled the train away from Omagh Town, was just took the.
In the fair day too, you see, every week. The fair day, we used to drive the kettle down for a
Well,
pound.
Cunningham Terrace there was full of kettle down the house.
Quite common, you know.
There were wooden pens up there at the start after the war. Then they took them away and put in iron bars. Pat used to be some dealer like Frank McGurn, and he'd be buying kettle for maybe a chain of butcher shops in Glasgow, and we'd get a chance to drive maybe 30 head, along with a couple of dogs. Well, we weren't in control of the dogs, driving them across the road, the convent gates, and down to Thingway to that's where they were loaded on. And then we get a shilling each. That was the state the Baptists for a fish supper. Oh, maybe.
Well, then, when did you dip your toe into the adult world and maybe start going out to dances and
Mel Ace is probably what it is.
Yes, isn't it?
Star Ballroom.
Clipper and the Star. The Star would have been the first.
Would have been the first.
When you went to the Star, you were
and what night? You know, just paint a picture for that. Would that have been a Friday night or
Saturday night. The Star
Saturday
was.
Star, half a crown, 8 people in for a pound.
And you'd head out.
8 half crowns in the pound that time.
At what time would you head out at?
They were starting. They started 9.
Started 9.
They were over 12 on the
9
Star.
to 12 on a Saturday night.
9 to 12.
Yeah.
And was there a dress code we expected to be
tie?
shirt and tie?
No.
But it used to be tie.
But it wasn't strict like it. wasn't a strict
No.
dress code. No.
You tell the story about the boy who arrived at the Star one time and he wouldn't let him in. No, it was the Royal Arms when it opened in '62 because that was the cinema. We opened it, in fact, as a ballroom. The Platters did, the local band, Platterman. But the fella arrived and they wouldn't let him in because he was dressed enough, but he'd no tie. And Big Billy Hannigan or whoever told him, sorry, there's room. So he says, go and get someone. He says, where? He says, I live 8 miles from here. How am I going to get? We can get someone. So he come back minutes later with a set of jump leads round his neck, tied up in a big rough knot. And Billy says, well, it doesn't look like that, but he said, let you in, but don't start nothing. This was supposed to be the joke. But the fourth was a half a crown, and then if you were lucky enough to get dancing, the girl, and doubly lucky to get asked her down for tea, you went down to, for a minute, down to, and Conlon, Alec's wife, Maud, she was one of the ladies who worked in the kitchen, and you get the cup of tea and a pastry and a sandwich, and about 1 or 6, each. That was not. See, Bob, you're right after paying 4 to get in, like, or 5. The 10 she'll note that you had to start was gone. You'd no money to buy 2 Woodbine the next day, but to treat this girl, you were John Wayne then, or you were
Clark Gable.
You were treating like the woman in the cinema. You thought you're away here. That's good. And you didn't get. You were afraid then to ask her, would you leave her home? You're actually afraid to do that in case she said no. You'd rather not know. No love and hope. That's a fact. Now we were 18, 19, 20. You know what I mean? You're a wee bit older when you start to get. Why not say? No, ask them. Like. But that's how crooked it was, and how. And then you're afraid maybe that girl might have been maybe the girlfriend of maybe someone else, or maybe she had a brother didn't like you with her for whatever reason, that he might have reasons of his own that you wouldn't even know. But you're walking around innocent all that, and you danced, and then you'd some girl that was maybe a bit prettier than some other girls. There'd be 10 fellas trying to lift her at the one time, like, and then some other girls didn't get lifted that often. Right. And this went on for a while too, like. But all in all, it was a. And then, of course, a lady's choice, and then if you could lift it, then there was a cheer went up, you know. Then you had your turn to dance, like. Then you're committed then. Yeah, because once a girl lifted you, and then it was like signing a contract. You nearly had to go with that.
You mentioned baptistic there earlier, Brian and Pat. I wonder, where else was it? Was the Cafe Rex open at that stage?
It opened later on,
Cafe Rex.
The
Highland Cafe as well, was it?
Highland Cafe.
Jack's
Gardies,
yeah.
Jack.
Popular venue too. We had good fun in the baptistries, the Cafe Rex.
It was huge.
It was a great place.
They got a jukebox, first jukebox, no more. 1852. And I think put in threepence and they played it. He'd gone along and it lifted the single and played it and the root band. Everybody was just standing, look at this thing going round. Couldn't believe it.
And would it stay open late or would it be 9 to 5?
About 11 or 12 o'clock maybe, in that time, you know.
There was an odd row about it, especially about the street. And
see, when you come out of the cinema, you see, you went there and got a fish supper.
straight across the road. Just
Straight across in the Royal Arms Entry. You know, but it was a great place.
There's boys took fish suppers into the cinema and you tend to watch the film. And you'd hear the paper going, there's boys eating it and the smell of the vinegar. And then there'd be 300 people smoking at the one time. You couldn't see the screen. You couldn't see the screen, that's the fact. The fags, I'm smoking myself.
Don't worry about the crackling, we're not on fire. We're flashing the sweets around here and chatting about early school days as well.
Good boys, we get the sweets.
Tell me about school then. What was school like in the very early days? And sort of.
No, but I really didn't enjoy school, to be honest. Because I had from different reasons. I had an older brother who was exceptionally smart, and the next sister Margaret was good at school, and Kathleen was good, and I wasn't that good at school. And then there was other brothers that came after me, and there was relations of mine, the Gallaghers and the various other people who had done very well at school. And it was only expected if you were part of a family who had done well, the next children was expected to do the same, or maybe better, you know. And if you fell behind at all, you fell into this, and then you got a nod. The year was starting to get warm all the time.
Was nuns at the primary school with you?
Primary,
Both of us went to the convent primary first.
Primary first.
Mother Oliver's.
Mother Oliver,
We played in the band.
We had her band, we?
We were in the band. I played the clappers. What do you play?
I blew that thing with the water on it. Little thing.
Like a duck.
A duck thing, I had to drink the water, then you couldn't play it. July day and you thirsty, no money for lemonade. I had to drink the water out of the thing. What's wrong with you, Brian? What's wrong with your whistle? Somebody forgot to fill it. I drank the water. Because I needed water for it to run this thing.
Convent days were good too. We were always cracking the convent was clubs.
No, they had a job. This thing, I don't like this generalisation on one, which there was a few when I found again years later when you came down and pick up the from other teachers and other people what happened. But one or two were a wee bit severe with the hand or with the chastising. But I could name the ones. In fact, I won't. But some of the nuns were excellent, and the Christian brothers, excellent. And my mother used to recite the whole history of what they done away back in bad penal times, way back when nobody was being taught at a time, and type of thing. And what benefit that they were to the society at the time, 200 years ago, whatever. But in our day, I mean, that was there was some you were afraid of them all, but you respected them all. But they're a wee bit sharp, like when it come to chastising, you got very, there was no such thing as a smallish kind of a chastisement for a small mistake. It was you come down heavy, to the extent you sometimes you couldn't even use your right hand, you couldn't lift a pencil. And Jackie Sloan used to say, he's a local photographer in the Herald, retired now. Jackie went on to grammar, of course, and so on and so forth. But Jackie, he said one time he asked the teacher to beat him up before he done his junior, and he says, "Wait, well, she's just beat me up and I passed 11 plus now." He says, "No, I might get the junior, just give me an odd thump." But he meant back off, like, don't let me do it this time without the chair. But
we went, and you went from the convent, then you heard about this, the Christian Brothers and Brother Hamill and all, this
fear factor.
You had this fear factor when you were paraded down Brook Street from the convent primary, you see, the old building.
Yeah.
Oh, right. You were paraded down, then up into the Brothers' yard.
Scary.
And that was your first sight of that building, as a wee
like
lad.
long black cloaks on them.
What age would you been then? You'd have been 6 or 7 years old.
6.
And
Was Brother Doyle there in those days, was he?
No, not there. No.
Brother Byrne,
Ham,
Brother O'Connell, Brother
aye.
Skane.
Brother Ryan would have been he'd have been the principal.
Were there any female teachers at all?
No, not in the brothers that time. No.
Right, not even in the infant
Not in the
classes,
grammar-
the junior
no.
classes.
No.
The secondary, no.
Master Gillespie and
Donald Donnelly started when we were there.
Aye, Scully.
Master Scully started when we were there. They started as teachers.
Brother O'Connell. He was a nice man.
Which one was the manual room then? Was it?
It was around the back of the grammar school, alongside
Yeah.
it, you know. But we were the primary at that time, and that was our first time on stage. Was from the brothers.
Yeah.
1949. Brother Hamill's first speaking.
They're speaking, eh?
You know, we were in it. That was the first time we were ever in this town hall.
And then Uncle Frank McCrory. Frank was a talented man, but Pap would know more about him.
shows, you know. But
And he wrote that Catch Sheen Minnows and the Kelly Morning. He wrote that.
songs,
That's our pantomime has in it. He wrote it, but he was part of the orchestra too, wasn't he? At
it
the
was,
time, and he was part of Eugene's band, but the
Well, was he a performer himself? You know, would he have...
assistant postmaster, post office,
Right.
himself.
Aye.
But he was he
in
wrote.
his young day, what Jack was talking about.
Oh,
But would he
probably
have gone on to the stage himself and sang?
It would have been, you know.
the origins of the Omagh player he was in it at the very start.
Aye. And was he from Omagh?
Serious soccer player,
Frank,
wasn't he?
Oh, he was, yeah. He was a good footballer. He played in the old Wanderers team here in Omagh,
Right.
way back in the 20s.
And all his family done serious at school, every one of them.
Frank-
Arthur in
Frank.
particular and Francis, Nathan, they're all very serious and
nice
talented
fella.
people. But again, I remember going out they had a sizable house there at Dromore Road and a big garden at the back, apple trees, and of course in season the apples were the best apples ever ate. Then they were free too, of course. But those hens up the back and you'd go out with some of the leftovers from a few dinners of the house, breakfast and stuff. There wasn't much left over in those days because you eat everything. I mean, there was very little left. But you brought it out and it was mixed with some meal for the hens. And Arthur would be in one corner and Francis in another and Anne in another. And they'd be all doing the homework and there'd be total silence in the room. And Frank would be standing in the middle. Or he'd be writing something or doing whatever. And if you had a problem, then you consulted him. And now, think what you're saying again. It put you over it, you see, and that you sorted out yourself. Or if you didn't, he'd help you. And on the way, and that's why they all done. They'd done serious. They had a system of learning from school to home. And it was something that they wanted to do. It wasn't that, I don't want to do, I want it to play. You will, but after we do this first, then play then. Time and place, and they all done 2 hours of that, then washed their hands, had the tea, and then away they played then. And this kind of thing. Whereas the minute I came home school, I fired the bag. I don't know where the bag landed. I was out of this room before the books got down the floor.
Well, Brian, you know, looking at the kind of the turn of events with yourself, when you were 18, how did you see the future planning out in terms of work and that? You know, did you see yourself?
Well, I was singing, and with the pantomime, there was something to me. I sang as a young fella.
But did you see it as a career?
And no, I never thought about it as a career at all. I was in building sites. I was serving my time with Daddy. Then I was working with Can Brothers, where they could offer more work and better money at the time. And I worked, and then eventually I sang in the pantomime. Then I got an offer to go and sing with Charlie McElroy as a drummer. And he had suggested my name to the rest of this band. They were a breakaway band called the True Tones, and they were starting a new band. And wondered when I was singing it, and I asked me when I was singing a band, I turned down immediately because I was used to listening to Count John McCormick and Benjamin Gilly and Richard Tauber, Jerzy Bjorn and Sheffy De Stefano. These tenors who didn't sing to the beat. And Daddy had the 78s now, and Frank McCrory had them as well, and I'd be out listening to them. But this thing of singing dead on to the beat, I couldn't do that. Or at least I thought I couldn't. Charlie says you get used to it now, and you get paid for singing this time. Paid, not just clapped. You get clapped and paid. Says, right, I'll try this. So we've done a few rehearsals, and eventually we opened up in the Ballroom in Staban in October 20, 1960. 8 of us, or 9 of us in the Ballroom. There was 8 people in for £1 that time. There was 8, 2 and 6s on the pound. And you got £1 for singing. Well, you're on stage for 4 hours. And I might have sung 30, 35 songs, and you got £1. But a fish supper that time was 2 shillings, don't forget.
It's all relative.
A large there was 2 and threepence. And you had plenty of spending in the pound, like, at least I thought there was. And a poorer world in my opinion, but in my opinion, everybody wouldn't agree with me, but to me it was a nicer time because there was no pressure. There was you didn't hear a tenth of the violence that's about nowadays for some reason, and I don't know why that is. I just don't know why it has increased, whether it's the visual thing on TV has hyped it, or the tabloids play it up, or it's just happening through for whatever reason. People were very easy pleased, more content, and less expectant of bigger things. It didn't reach too high, and you hadn't too far to fall. You just went with the flow, and you small things pleased you, like.
Yeah.
And I was very respectful. When circuses came down, and there were some unbelievably talented people, and as Pat mentioned earlier, there were players and Paddy Laird's group and all that. And they were, to me, I didn't think I had a talent at all compared with these people. These people were brilliant. They could act, sing, and do things. And I could only sing. I thought on a few songs, and that was it. And as it turned out later, I made a living out of it. Like, eventually, like, good enough. But I mean, but all in all, it was. And then there was good caretaking. I mean, if Pat's father was doing a job, the preparation for a job, and the whole system was done in a way, professional way, like. And and the same with doing shows, preparation of scenery and all. It was all done. And the opening night, everybody was on standby, and and there was great dependability on each other. There was a whole focus. Everybody was a group, total package. I'm this and I'm not. I know.
No,
I didn't let you know who was who. He just left everybody.
Nobody got above themselves at all.
No. There's none of that, and nobody wanted to be. Everybody was dead on being just the same, you know. Although you had to respect, people who were in charge of different things, you had to respect them naturally, or the system didn't work. Like. But this was explaining in great detail without hitting you, you know, without chastising you or raising your voice. It was done on the camera. Look, tell me, why do you do that now? Why you done so? Why did you do that? No, but why would you not say? You say, oh, all right. So then you're nearly embarrassed. What you done? They embarrassed you. Then you didn't want to embarrass. So, and you're letting down not just yourself, your family. You're letting down the club. You're letting down. Then everybody else was looking at you, and then you sort of fell into line better without. Don't do that again. There was no need for that. That's the way it was. No.
Kind of a sort of sense of community responsibility in that.
No, you took on more responsibility, and they made you feel part of it. And then you took an integral part of whatever was happening, and you had a wee job to do. That was your job. And then you felt important, didn't you? That'd be about to give you something to do. Like, might only be carrying chairs, but for the face or something.
But you did your bit, you know.
Had to be bit of all the jigsaw fitted then. It all worked. You know.
At what stage did you realise you were going to make a full-time career at singing, Brian?
Well, the band, I left the band after, because the first 6 months I was in bands, I was in Galway. I read about Galway in school, not necessarily Galway, Dublin. It could be the Civil War, it could be the Rising, it could have been some part of history. And Gabriel had books, he went to the grammar, and he had books and stuff out of the library, stuff that I would never had at school, but he had them. And I was looking at them. And then here I was in Galway, I was in Cork, and I was in Limerick, and different things happened historically through the years. I remember going down to see places where things had happened. And this kind of thing. But I remember the driving was unreal. I wasn't driving, they were just sitting in the wagon, but the journeys were unreal, and there was no motorways that time. And eventually my mother thought it was bad for the health, and the running would be better in the day job again. So I left the band. And I was only out about 3 weeks, and then I joined the Platters, showed an ulcer from Omagh. Stayed there a year and a half, went back to the Polka Dots. Stayed there a year and a half, went back to the Platters. 65, changed their name to Platter Men. And then I went on to 68, left then, and started the Buckaroos for 30 years. Then I stopped it, and then I went solo. And I was just hoping all the time. And Pat has a good singing voice, Pat here. He has, you know, but he wouldn't agree, he wouldn't say no. And he had a good ear because his father, all the Chesters.
You heard me up on Donnelly, sure.
He got the biggest clap of the night, sure. So he went down the street. And then all the Chesters could all Pete, his Uncle Pete and his Uncle Eddie and Paddy Bobby. They're all musicians. They could all play. He had a good ear, tuneful ear. And I wanted him to be in the band with me. But he wouldn't take the time out to learn or to listen. Somebody just wouldn't take the time. And I went on and done my own thing, and Pat went on to the painting, and on he went.
But you're the peak best of Omagh, just.
Oh, no doubt. Good player.
Pat, your fellow was involved in St. Eugene's band, obviously.
He was. I was over 70 years in it.
That's a fact. Long, maybe.
He went into it when he was 12. But they were all on. I regret not. When me and Brian went to
remember we used to say that?
We went to learners class, but we had a short sit there too. Unfortunately,
told to leave.
Passed through. I told him not to come back.
Well, I want to be a good player right that day. No witness.
But we had a great experience with the band. The night we pelted the band roof. Do you mind?
The Turbers, there was about 35 of the Turbers, a great family for the band as well. Yeah. Very parochial, very community, very church, very, very much a lovely family. Like the Chesters are all involved. No, total families, 3 or 4 members of each family. But they were rehearsing as they did weekly.
The Labour Hall.
And the Labour Hall, which is down where Donnelly's is now. And of course behind that was the Cow Common, where the kettle pens were. And that time it was really open, piled bars. And we were way up, and of course not knowing, like. But the door to the place is to the front to the Kevin Road. And if you're behind, looking down on the building, you can't see anybody coming out of the door. Well, you can if they come out and they walk to the left, because they're walking up towards John Street. You'll see the men passing that space. But if they go the other way, which on the night in question, that's what happened. And we were friends, they'd be playing away, and this thing fire, down would come the stone, bang, and they'd stop playing. For a while, there'd be a silence for a few minutes, then they started 1, 2, and they'd playing again, rehearsing, whatever they were doing. Then down would go another pile of stones. But announced to Pat and I, and it was 3 or 4 with Paddy. Thomas, sat by Thomas, and a couple more, Shane Connolly. And Pat's father was very, very athletic, very fit man for his age. He really was and for his age, he was the best. And the sports, the Cardinal Dalton games, and there'd be runners among all fathers. Bobby used to always win it. He was just he came out and went to the right, up towards the hill, McKelvey Travel, that way, up round there. Where my granny lived, where Ben Kelly, the house, the Roses used to hang out. Down there, and come back down the back of the houses. What do you call the wee houses there? Your granny's room? Fairmont. And he was in top us before we realised. Next thing, spotted him, too late, grabbed Pat. That was it. I had the squeals of Pat, and I was lucky, I got away. You had a fair chance in that night. For throwing it, that was it, but I mean, we shouldn't have been at it, but that'd have been the extent of our criminality now, or our wrongdoing. Bar stealing an odd apple in the summertime, or not.
Tinder was too much of a temptation, I'm sure.
That'd have been your lot now, regarding damage or hurting anybody, or just didn't. That was it.
And it was just due to an objection to the music they were playing. It wasn't your favourite tune.
We just wanted to stop them. We had this authority to stop them.
Like when you look at you're describing something like that, it's kind of Tom Sawyer and Huckleberry Finn. It was
you got it in one.
It was an innocent, more innocent kind of a thing.
If we'd had had anybody, it'd been broken heart.
There's no malice intended.
No,
at all. No.
And the other things we did, even knocking the doors and putting the thread on and pulling.
No.
But even going back, when you were growing, the two of you growing up, were you given any kind of leeway in the evening, or were you expected to be in, say, by 6 o'clock or 7? Or
No.
Well, I was had to be back.
Personally, my father was very good that way,
Aye.
Some of the boys were being called in, but I'd have been still playing with the boys,
Aye.
No, they weren't too strict.
Saturday night in particular, I had to be in there any Saturday if you wanted to picture someone. You had to be in the Rosary 9 o'clock, the maximum rate. And then for Sunday morning, all the shoes, even one time, had to be dried out in the big range, with paper stuffed inside them, dried and polished. And that time the shoes didn't work like modern day shoes, scientifically designed now, where they fit your feet. Them days they're a certain size. You're walking about crippled.
You fitted there.
Feet bleeding. You had and your feet bleeding, and they were all lined up with the wild house, and you're walking mass, and then you
Clumping to mass.
The shoes, they were made like they're made for
tough they were.
That's right.
A big rough one.
Man about town.
Well, we were lucky we grew up in a great time,
Yeah.
There was certainly many shoemaker shops there was as well that time, and there was dressmakers, maybe a dozen dressmakers. Milking, you know what I mean? And getting suits, if you're really in the money that time, we didn't get it done. But some of the older men, the businessmen especially, they would get it measured for a suit. They got a suit made on site. They were made locally too.
Yes.
The suits, and there's some great tailors. Your man at the chapel, Pat Cleary was as a tailor of that standard.
That's right.
Like yourself, he's at that standard of a tailor. The only one I think.
He's the last master tailor in Tyrone, is right?
That's right.
Yeah, who would have served his time with it. Yeah.
And but all in all, between the innocence of the whole thing and the railway, another bad year was 52, 3. It wasn't like 47, but it was really mean time weather-wise. And you go down to Cairns Coal, Watterson's Coal. That's Scarf Centre there. It used to be there. And the Cairns was in Castleton, and there was a big way bridge in the shop as you walked in, and they brought the bags around the shop, and the coal was on the floor, and they weighed 2 stone of coal, and they emptied into a bag, and you took that out and put it in the bicycle, and between the frame, and wheeled that up. Trevor came, would have been there, or George, or some of the boys. And at one time you couldn't get up past the chapel. You had to get way down over the bridge, the old metal bridge. I remember in 1948 that bridge was like that. It was all steel, and we used to climb out through the openings, and you'd river below you, and nobody says that's dangerous. You Used to crawl out, and then they took it away in 48 and put it on a concrete bridge there. Then you go around and push it up the lesser hill. Or else somebody would pull you up to bring the 2 stone of coal, coke, or coal. When they burned the thing in the gasworks, then you got the offspin, you got the coke. They took the tar out of it, and took the gas out of it. And then that was the gasworks.
You know, what you describing all that, you know, in a way, that kind of era, it was the end of an era, that the 50s, 60s.
Well, horses were used to deliver the bread. Horses were used to take everything from the railway, weren't they, Pat? And all the big barrels of Guinness. Then they come to the top of the hill there, the Curtis, and the boy had to stop and get off. He'd be carrying maybe 1.5 tons of barrels of Guinness, or some heavy, whatever it be, and he'd take off this big iron shoe that went underneath one wheel. And the big cart horses, and these were big horses, like huge big horses. Huge. But you see them with their hindquarters rising up, along with the brake on to pull back this 2 tons sliding down the hill. And then they're undone down these 2 planks, and they roll the big bars against. If you had to be near, it would kill you. If you wanted to break your legs to bits, and roll them off down, and everybody that time bottled their own Guinness. We used to see them bottling the Guinness in the different places, and if you're a child running about, you know.
As you said, that they all came in the railway, and then Wardy's cars were taken over there.
That's right.
That.
There was so many people involved. There's a whole network of things happening. That's all deliveries delivered now in
a pallet,
That's right, you know. And of course, in those days, you mentioned the pubs. I mean, it was purely a male domain.
You never seen a girl in the pub, you'd run out again, you think there's someone wrong with her.
Well, in terms of the dances, Brian, when did that can alcohol world creep in? You know, you mentioned, you know, you go to the
started in the
dances.
cities of Belfast and Dublin, where the people just are more
in the early 60s
liberal, but no, the early Clearys of Dublin and a few other places. It happened maybe 55, 56 where they allowed Dublin only. No, sorry, if it was a hotel based place in the Ballroom attached, you could get a licence, but then later on, no. But it came in about the early 60s would be right. When they allowed, and then all the dry halls, the Reynolds, the ex-Longford teacher, his family had owned maybe, there was Jetland, Cloudland, Dreamland, Danceland, Wonderland. They're all land, something, and they were all huge, big ballrooms like the Gap, Pat, Mulston, but they had there was no bar. They all became haysheds when the drink opened up in the other places, hotels. The bands moved to the hotels, and they had the licence. That was the end of the dry ballroom. Buying the lemonade, it was only cost you money from then on, like.
Unfortunately, folks, time has beaten us. I'm with myself, Declan Ford, and Brian Coll and Pat Chesters. Thank you very much for your wonderful memories here tonight, folks.
Thank you, Don. Thank you very much, Declan.
For inviting us.
Enjoyed the crack.
We'll continue some other time, all being well. Good night, take care, and we'll see you again. Bye-bye.
Many's a gay night from dark till daylight I spend with people of high renown. But in all their grandeur and heaps to squander, my heart would wander for Sweet Omagh Town.